Good day, good night, all. We are back again with a special guest for an update. We have the one and only Mark Sargent with us, um, Mr. Flat Earth.
Oh no! Seriously, that's how you're gonna intro me? Oh, great.
I've got to do it. I've got to do it. I mean,
That's fine. That's
there's
fine.
so many channels. There's so many people who, if you yourself, Rob Skiba,
Yeah.
Eric Dubé, the Globebusters, Jeranism,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
DRTH,
Yep.
um, are the main forerunners. I mean, there's clearly people who would say, who started it first, who is the originator, etc. But
Right.
when you think of Flat Earth, those are the main names. And we can't forget D Marvel as well with that the excellent sort of
Oh yeah.
hype.
D Marvel's great too. Yeah.
Um, so that's why I've got to do it. Anyone that comes on, and obviously the wonderful Patricia Steer as well, who hosts a lot of the chats and
Right.
conversations as well.
Right.
So that's why I've got to introduce you that way
That's
because you
fine.
are, you are. So
Yeah, I know, I know. And in all fairness, I the only credit I'm gonna take here is that I created the dummies guide for Flat Earth. You know, the easy intro. So if Flat Earth is a university, I am the freshman recruiter and I get people through the door. And then after that, they can argue all they want about advanced maps and physics and NASA and tests and all that other stuff. I'm the guy that tries not to spook people, scare them too much. Which is why I try to be as approachable as possible.
So in essence, a good way you're the milk before the teeth are fully formed, and then we can start to chew.
Ah, very British. Yeah, yeah, I like that. It's good.
So in essence, Mark, obviously we've brought you back again because it's still an amazingly hot topic. Um,
Yeah.
in the UK, there has been a number of a number of conferences, about three, I think, major conferences and quite a lot of meetups. We've
Yeah.
got one in Bristol, we've got one up in Manchester shortly. We had a major conference in Birmingham, which I
Right.
believe you were invited to.
I was going to do it, and then I got sidetracked and ended up going to a film festival in Toronto where the first Flat Earth, the full-fledged mainstream documentary premiered. And that was
Yeah.
literally like in the same week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll touch on both of those things.
Yeah, yeah,
Starting
yeah.
with the conference local to ourselves in sunny Birmingham as it is today. Um, there was the ultimately after the event. I was able to. I wasn't able to actually attend it live, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I did reach out to the organizers, but there was clearly some their agenda didn't marry up with a lot of what we wanted to do of sorts. So in
Mhm.
essence, for what I know, there was no press allowed in the place,
Okay.
which is a little bit disappointing. But I did hear that the two major press outlets didn't manage to go in. Um, I don't know how, whether they put
Yeah, you're
they,
not going to be able to keep the media out forever. And I know that Britain has tried to take a little bit of a different approach than the United States because, over here, media is just part of our lives. There's so
yes,
much of it, not just mainstream, but now social media, which is just it's everywhere. You're not going to be able to escape it. And here's the reason why. If one media group gets in, which is what happened over there in on your side, if one gets in, the others don't have to get in. They're just going to, and I don't even know if it's considered plagiarism. They just give it to the other people. Other people can just take the stories and print it kind of as their own and say, oh yeah, this group reported it first, and everybody's happy. Nobody sues anybody for plagiarism anymore, and that's how it goes. So escaping the media entirely is really really difficult.
yeah, most definitely. I can understand the approach of sorts. They're them trying to sort of control what's sort of said because as you say,
Oh
there's
yeah,
hit pieces, etc. But at
yeah,
the same time, there are a lot of open people across the world.
Right.
It just depends on what information they're exposed to. Some people don't really understand the power of the internet and
Oh
what
yeah.
information you can get from it. So
Yeah.
most people, I'd say 50%, let's be very cup half full today.
Right.
50% of the people would just utilize it for, comedy and entertainment, that kind of stuff. And the
Yeah.
rest will mix that up with actually, let me research again and understand what's going on in the sort of wider world.
Mhm.
So putting that information out via the media, allowing them to either run with it and be sort of objectively report the news, or whether they're going to try and twist it, it's
Right.
still putting the information out. There's no such thing as bad news because the news is there to
Right.
be interpreted. So I think it was a little bit of a mistake. Trustfully, on the next event, it's going to be a little bit more open because there needs to be more eyes on it. The
Agreed.
news that's been out, for instance, you was on, was it Good Morning GMTV with
Oh, when I was on with Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan? Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I was my entire goal during that interview was to basically not get cut off. That was my goal, which was because I was coming in via video and everybody else was on set, including Terry Virts, one of our former astronauts. And it was kind of a last minute thing where they said, oh yeah, and it's, by the way, it's going to be in the middle of the night your time because it's early in the morning in London. And oh wow, yeah, Good Morning Britain. It was I tried to be as friendly as possible, and what killed me was that, and I didn't realize this till the interview was almost over, was that Terry Virts would not speak with me, would not speak to me, would not say my name, would not address any of my points. Well, honestly, if you listen to it and literally cut out all my chunks, it would basically just be him interviewing with Piers. There was
Yes.
literally no interaction between us, and it's like, wow, that's so he was under orders basically. You got to remember, he retired, and I don't know what the ranking system is over there. He retired over here a full bird colonel in the United States military. It's like, look, you got to get to that high of a rank without being able to follow orders, and he did it perfectly. Now he won't be able to do it again. That's a one-off, but it worked pretty well for that interview.
It did. It definitely did.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do you
I
think
think
that was? That he didn't want to speak?
You there? Uh-oh. Guys, I can't hear anybody right now.
oh,
Somebody
didn't you
hit.
hear?
Now I can
Didn't
hear
you
you.
hear? Okay, didn't you hear my co-host then?
No,
Speaking of,
Oh, can you hear me now?
now I can hear you.
Okay, no problem, no problem. No, the question was, I'm wondering, why do you think he didn't want to speak to you during this interview?
Oh, because the questions are too tough. I'll give you an example. The flat earthers make points that mainstream science or anybody tied to mainstream science really can't debate. I was supposed to do an interview with a Georgetown University physicist, and this was through a British television team. And they said, okay, we're going to set this up in a certain way where you're not going to be able to talk over each other. You will ask your 5 questions in video format. We will give him the tape. He will watch it. We will record his responses, and we'll just be shuffling tapes between the two of you. And so I came up with 5 scientific questions for him. They were really brief because they wanted it really brief. And the professor got him, and that was it. He folded, and that's it. He said, I'm not going to do it. And he walked away. Think about, and that's a professor, mind you. Think about an astronaut. I mean, really, they're rocket jockeys. What are they going to know about anything? And in terms of scientific points. And so you don't want to look like a fool on camera. So he was told basically, do not address anyone along that side. I was stunned though, because I was using his name. I even wished him a happy birthday. I did my homework on him. His birthday was literally the next day. He was turning 50. And so they wanted to be as nice as I could. And he just would not do it. He wasn't being mean or anything. It was literally like I wasn't there. It was unbelievable because they could watch me on the monitor. They were all, the 3 of them, the 2 co-hosts, and they were watching me, but he wouldn't do it. So whatever, that's fine. Again, you can get away with it once. The next time if they try it, I'm going to call them out on it. So bring me any other astronaut at this point.
Yeah, definitely. It was great. It definitely got a lot of views. Anyway, so
Oh, yeah.
how did it affect your channel after that? Did you have a lot more people come on?
The channel's been growing pretty steadily. The problem with that particular interview was, and it's happened with very, very few, was that that particular network was so big that they copyrighted it, and
Yes.
I didn't get a strike or anything. They just said, sorry, you can't use it. They just blocked it, and so you could not watch the clip over here in the States. In fact, you couldn't watch it outside of their channel, and since they didn't really have a YouTube channel that pointed at us, nor did I don't even know if they put Flat Earth in the title. Hardly anybody on our side saw it. I put it up and it was up for less than a day, and then it was blocked. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, I've got it, but I can't show it to anybody publicly, which sucks.
Are you able to just put the audio out?
I probably could put. You know what? That's not a bad idea. I didn't even think about that.
Someone's put it up. Someone's actually got it up. But what they've did, they've put it within a TV screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it hasn't been taken down yet.
I try to stay away from that. But you know what? I may put up the audio. Sure. Yeah. Why not? Why not? That couldn't hurt. That's not a bad idea. I could rip the audio out of that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think because it was a good exchange, and it's going to highlight, as you say, those pauses and those breaks where you are addressing the Mr. Wizard.
Yeah, I again, I understand. Look, and people ask me that sometimes, and we can talk about the National Geographic thing in a bit, which was one of the reporters from that group said, "Oh yeah, by the way, just so you know, I'm friends with Terry Virts." And this was very recently. It was only a couple weeks ago. And I go, really? And she goes, are you calling, and this is an old ploy. It's like, are you calling my friend a liar? And I said, she's baiting me. And I'm going, well, it's not like I'm saying he's a bad guy, who wears a black hat and twirls his mustache and laughs evil. He's a military man. They signed the agreements and basically says you have to keep secrets. If not, you will be put up for treason. That's plain as simple as that. And so if they tell him, look, you can't talk to anybody about any of this, the details of the space program, that's what he's going to do. He's going to keep his mouth shut. So that's what he did. So I can't say, he's a horrible, awful person. Is he lying though? Yes, he is. And then of course she said, I take great offense to this, and everybody in NASA should. I'm going, fine, let him take offense. It's not going to change anything. So
definitely not.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's an interesting stance to take. I mean, it just shows you that if you can present information, everyone should be at an adult stage, especially being quote unquote highly educated. I mean, if you should be going through a NASA system, a NASA program.
Right.
So you'd think, okay, I can employ critical thinking. So I've been taught this. Let's hear what this layman has to say, which goes totally against what I've learned. But let's actually challenge it, really methodically. It doesn't seem that people do that. They have an automatic response. So I was told, wow.
There's also a group think about that as well. It's not just what you believe. It's what you think everyone else around you believes. So it's kind of like you're standing with an invisible crowd around you saying that, hey, we all know, the quote I love is it's been proven by so many people over the last X number of centuries or millennia that it's a globe. And I come back and I say, really? I go, because it hasn't been proven. I go, nobody proved it to you. They told you. That's the biggest difference. Everything else you can prove down here on the ground. Again, the properties of water, the properties of fire, whatever is gravity, right? You can experiment with this stuff on the ground, but when it comes to the shape of the world, this is something you're told. You're told by the men in the white jackets, and they tell you this. And they've been telling you this for the better part of 5 centuries, at least, which means your father and his father and going on down the line. And so you were born into it. You didn't have a chance. That's groupthink. They want, you feel like you're part of this. You're part of the majority, and that we're the minority. It's like, it's not as much of a minority as you might think. Anyway, sorry, it's my little rant.
It's also the trendy thing. I mean, most people
Oh
these
yeah.
days, I mean, I guess what, maybe 50, let's say 20 years ago, it was
Hmm.
kind of 20 plus years ago. Let's go back a bit further. It was cool to be an individual,
Right.
to break from the normal, to have your hair a bit longer, or however, whatever it was. You didn't want to be how the quote unquote society told you to be, kind of thing. We had the
Right.
generations of peace, love, and happiness, and all of that. And it grew up and grew up and grew up. And we got to a certain point, it just seemed like they don't want to be individual anymore. They want to fit that sort of that carbon copy.
Hmm.
They don't want to be out of line. They don't want to say the right thing, the wrong thing. It seems like at the moment there's all this social justice warrior type stuff. Everyone wants to be all, stuff's wrong and we need to make a change. But nothing has really changed except for mass media and social media. But
Right.
these atrocities have been taking place since before we were even born.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool and
People have.
trendy.
Yeah, people have done bad things for a very, very long time, and social media. I mean, you remember for the longest time it was just media. Over here was only three channels: ABC, NBC, and CBS for decades. And then the internet came along, and then high-speed internet, and then finally smartphones. And between the three of those, everything is so interconnected now to where even a rumor can spread so quickly that people are questioning. I mean, there's a lot more doubt out in the world for things that we used to hold as canon, as gospel. It's like, okay, now it is questioned by a lot of different people, and you can meet up with people that share your views a lot faster than it used to be.
Connectivity, most definitely.
Mm.
You mentioned was it Vancouver?
Not Vancouver. Why? Like meetups or
No,
what?
Toronto, the film festival.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Toronto.
The Toronto Film
Yes,
Festival. Yeah. So, all of last year, we had a documentary team from Los Angeles follow around some flat earthers, and it was basically presenting the people of flat Earth. So it wasn't a movie about is it or isn't it. It's okay. It's really, really hot right now. It's been getting hotter and hotter, and here's some of the people involved. And so they covered myself, Patricia, Jaron from Jaronism, Bob from Globebusters, Nathan Thompson from the United States' biggest flat Earth Facebook group, Chris Pontius, who makes the models, and is that six? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's all of them. And they follow us around different places. So we shot in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and I went down to Houston to visit Patricia. And sorry, did I say Patricia Steer? Patricia Steer. And she and I went to NASA and gave them crap, and they were all over the place. And then finally, it culminated at the conference in Raleigh. And so the film was finally finished at the beginning of this year, and there were 3,000 entries submitted to the film festival in Toronto, and only 110 were chosen, and we were one of them, which was great. Yeah, it was really, really fun. And so we were invited, Patricia and I were invited to go up there, and we spent the weekend in Toronto with the director and the producers of this film, we were only the subjects. We were not tied to the physical making of this film in any way. We weren't producers or anything, but we got a chance to see it on the big screen for the first time, and it was amazing. Is it a flat Earth movie? As far as will flat Earthers love it? No, because it's shot from both sides. Meaning, not only do they talk to flat Earthers, but they also talk to Scott Kelly, an astronaut. They talk to a psychologist. They talk to different people from the science community.
Psychologist, Mark. Let me just stop you there for a moment. Psychologists, on what angle were they coming
Well,
to?
the angle you would expect, which is what makes flat earthers believe in flat Earth, and is there something wrong with them? The type of thing. Because the question has come up, more than once. My first week I was doing this, people are like, "Okay, are you mental?" And it's like, no, I'm not mental, but at the same time, I'm eccentric, that's for sure. But yeah, so they were talking to all these people. Now, granted, their pieces were pretty small in this, but they had to pepper them in there every once in a while to at least keep the audience from going off the rails, because it's a really, really heavy flat Earth movie for the most part. But flat Earthers won a flawless victory. So when Patricia and I were up there for the second showing, the director decided to announce that we were in the theater, right? And after the movie, because they do a Q&A up front, which we weren't a part of, and within like the second question after we were announced, the people didn't want to talk to the director and the producers anymore. They wanted to talk to us because we were the ones that, that were pushing the flat Earth thing. And there was a huge curiosity, and that's how I know that this documentary could potentially be one of the greatest recruiting tools we have, because again, it puts the seed in people's head. And you remember, all those people in the audience, with the exception of a few, were globalists. They were globe believers, and this was amazing. So yeah, if anyone wants to check it out, the trailer and everything about the movie it's not released yet. They're still looking for a distributor. Is at behindthecurvefilm.com. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I got one for you now, Mark, and this is I've been waiting a while to ask you this question on air.
Yeah.
The Tesla in space. Now, when that was going on, when you read the comments, everyone was saying, "You see, the Earth's not flat. The Earth's not flat." Now, how do you explain that? Is that some kind of? How do you explain that? Is that real or is it not real?
Oh my God, no! It was one of the worst productions I've ever seen come out of anything. It was like they were trying to see if they could get away with faking space on the cheap. Could you do, because NASA gets $50 million a day, so they've got money to spend. Yeah. But Tesla, who, by the way, was not created by Elon Musk, it was created by some other guys. Elon Musk just bought Tesla. Yeah. Everyone listening, don't forget that, because I don't want the history books to say, oh yeah, Tesla was created by Elon Musk. No, it's created by some other guys. He just purchased them outright. No different than sports teams that are bought by other people. It's like, those guys didn't invent that sports team. They just took it over. No, here's the reason why there's so many different. I made a video on dealing with this directly, and a lot of other flat earthers did as well. But the first things you got to look at are the car itself. The fact that they used this roadster, and it was not prepped. He was the first one to say, Elon said, we did not prep this thing for space. So unless they remember to take all the air out of the tires, and I mean every pound of pressure, those tires would have blown up as tight as a drum and then detonated, destroying the fiberglass. That would have been the first thing. The windshields, both the front and the side windshields, you guys don't get snow that much over there, but we do, over the United States. And look, if you've ever poured, what they say is don't pour warm or hot water on a cold windshield, for a very obvious reason. The stress on the material is too much, and those windows would have spider webbed and shattered in 2 seconds. Any pressurized system, and I don't care if it's the window washer fluid or the transmission or any of the other brake fluid, anything that's compressed would have failed, would have burst because of the vacuum of space. The power of a vacuum is no joke. The paint would have blistered, the dash, the plastic, and that's just garden variety plastic, and that dash, that would have buckled in 2 seconds. Oh boy, where else could I go with this thing? How about the things that you didn't see? One was the rockets. Yeah, you saw those 2 booster rockets land, but you didn't see the main rocket pull away, break off and launch the car. You didn't see that giant Falcon rocket, tumble off into the distance. And that's because they were trying to save the money in the video layers. But the part that bugged me, probably more than anything, and people say, oh, it's kind of small, is, you have 2 major companies there, one public and one private, and that is Tesla and SpaceX, right? How would you know that? There wasn't a single logo on anywhere in those cars. I mean, we're talking, this is the United States, right? We live for advertising and marketing and all those things. We have our motor car races. You can barely even see the paint of the car. There's so many logos, corporate logos on those cars. This car should have a giant SpaceX on the side. The hood should have said Tesla. I mean, there should have been logos, everything. It was like the logos on the car themselves were removed. Even the fake the astronaut itself, which was just this mannequin, supposedly. The mannequin didn't even have. the mannequin didn't have any logos on it, and not only that, it's like, okay, why in the world would you waste a marketing opportunity? Meaning, why wouldn't you have? Because there are corporations in this country that would pay top dollar for exposure like that. I don't know. One of them would be Disney, who owns Star Wars. You put a stormtrooper in that seat, and that thing pays for itself. You put Boba Fett in the other seat, or something from Guardians of the Galaxy, or Iron Man from the Avengers. In fact, why are you using a two-door car in the first place? Why would you use the Roadster? Why wouldn't you use your flagship car, which is a four-door sedan? Why not use that car? That'd be great. Then you can do 4 seats and do all sorts of fun stuff. It was like they were doing the bare minimum to get this thing out there. And in fact, I'll tell you this, that when because I was sent a screenshot like everybody else was, in social media. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, did you see this, right? And I laughed. I honestly thought Jaronism had made that screenshot in Photoshop. I wrote back to whoever it was and going, ha ha ha, very funny. I go, when did Jaron make this, or whoever? Right? And they go, dude, no, that's real. And I was going, what are you talking about? It's real. they're going, no, they put a sports car in space. I'm going, wait, what are you talking about? And I'm just scrambling, like running around. I'm going trying to confirm this. But here's the thing, with social media, you can gauge people's reactions in real time. And I think they put it out there and then watched social media and said, okay, how is the public reacting to this? And even a lot of the flat earthers, I'm sorry, not just the flat earthers, but a lot of the normal people that are out there, they didn't believe it either. They're going, it looks fake. It looks fake. And a lot of people say that, hey, even if I wasn't a flat earther, I would have looked at it, because we've seen, as you know, we're years and years into the internet, right? Everybody's been sent so many photoshopped images over the decades that you just look at this thing, it's like, yeah, Photoshop, boring. In fact, it's not even that interesting. It's like there wasn't even a meme attached to it. So it's like I literally was going to toss it in 2 seconds. Then I wrote back and I said, oh yeah, maybe I could use this. Who has the original? It was a Jaron. And it's like, no. Yeah. So anyway, Tesla, absolutely horrible, terrible, awful, terrible.
That sort of echoes, the last thing you said echoes my thought, because when I loaded up the old YouTube and went to the homepage, I saw a few of those videos. I think may have been via your channel, maybe even Jeronism. I saw it a few times, even on the suggested side. And I was wondering, I'm thinking, is this like the new, someone, again, as you said, is this a meme or something?
Yeah.
And it wasn't for the first, I think it took me about 2 days until I actually heard someone talking about it. And they said, oh, they've got a Tesla in space. And I heard it on the news. And I just didn't put the 2 and 2 together, because, as you said, it looks so unbelievable. And then when you look at the footage, you're thinking, well, there's all this talk about flat Earth. There's all this stuff pre-flat Earth about them not going to the moon and stuff. And there's a very strong evidence to say that there's no way that took place. So where's the 4K cameras of every single conceivable shot that you could think of? And why is that not being beamed across the world?
Right. And with the Tesla stuff, why wasn't any of the footage that they had mucked up? It was flawless. Meaning, there wasn't a single crackle of static except for that one shot that apparently was out of sequence, where supposedly the capsule opened up and the car came out, even though we never saw exactly what happened, and they should have shot that from the front, not the side. Yes. A fine example of misdirection, and even I bought it for the first 4 or 5 hours, which was they landed those 2 rockets simultaneously down in Florida, and then they immediately cut to the car, a side profile shot of the car. I was going, and I was going, wow, interesting, right? And I'm going, wait a minute, why would you? Where's the booster rocket, or where's the main rocket? Why would that happen? And it's like you would never land those 2 rockets simultaneously right next to each other for safety concerns, because you got, for the same reason you don't have 2 helicopters landing next to each other. You don't want anything to go wrong, but you have to shoot it that way for the public, because otherwise they're going to get confused. And that is, okay, is that rocket 1 or is that rocket 2? Because they look identical and you don't want to confuse them. It's like, well, let's just land them right next to each other. It's like, it looks good on camera, but in reality, you'd never ever do that. The shots of the Earth it's spinning around, spinning around. I'm going, okay, is it supposed to be going somewhere? Because apparently no one's steering this thing at all. There's no retros, there's no stars in the background, and then they just cut off the feed at one point, even though there's no static. It's not like the signal's getting weaker and weaker. It's like, okay, and the battery is now dead. It's like, wait, what? What do you mean the battery's now dead? You just declared that the battery's dead? And yeah, it's just. I'm sorry. I could talk for a long time on that Tesla thing. It just drove me insane. Oh, it's just awful. But I'm glad that the average person. I've watched too many videos of people responding to that video, not our stuff, but responding to that video, who said it looks fake. And I think that's what they wanted to find out, which was, okay, how cheap can we do this without the public immediately just saying, yeah, I'm not buying it at all. There was enough people responding that I don't think you're ever going to see another car in space, which is sad, because if you really wanted to make some money off of this, and I know you couldn't, and that is, I'm sure just about every other car manufacturer called up Tesla almost immediately, said, hey, what will it take to get a truck in space? We'd love to get I mean, it's a great advertising gimmick. But you can't, because anyone that gives them their truck, they'd want to make sure everything was set up just so, and you can't let them in on it. So it was an inside job, and it worked to a limited capacity, but yeah, for the most part, I think it just played very terribly.
But the press was really behind this thing. There was really
oh come on, the press, the anytime Elon Musk says anything, he gets press, and that's because in our society now, if you make a few $1 billion, you will get, and you say something, they consider it to have some impact on civilization. Every headline, everything that he has said over the last, I don't know, ever since he's been giving headlines, the last 2 or 3 years anyway, has been nothing. It would make it. There's such bold futurist predictions. It's like drunk futurist predictions, meaning, hey, the Puerto Rico that got hit by that hurricane, right? It's like, I'm going to solve Puerto Rico's power problems with Tesla technology. With our whatever solar generators. Never happened. We're going to send 2 people around the tourists around the moon and back with our space program, with our SpaceX Falcon rocket. We're going to do it in 2018. Nope, it's 2018 now. No one's even talking about it. It's never ever going to happen. We're going to colonize the moon by 2030. Nope. We're going to start launching to the moon 2022. Nope, that's not going to happen. I'm developing a super plane that is going to fly from the United States to China, and it's going to cost cheaper than a first class ticket. What was the last one he just did? He's going to make a super underground subway from San Francisco to Los Angeles, something like that, with a drilling technology that's straight out of sci-fi. And that's going to be a thing. The stuff he comes up with, I don't know if they're just letting him go or if somebody's feeding him these headlines, but it's not that they're just bold. They're ridiculously bold. Even your best sci-fi writers would never take that sort of stance. Yeah. They just wouldn't. And so, yeah, literally nothing he has ever said has come true, not even close. And yet the media, every time he does a press release, the media puts it out there because, hey, he's a billionaire. Fine. He made some money off of PayPal. Lots of people on the internet have made money. It doesn't mean he's some sort of soothsayer that's, sitting in the back of a cave with a pointy hat and a long beard dispensing sage-like wisdom. Sorry, it's my little rant. Sorry, I hate that guy.
But you painted a very vivid picture. That's exactly what people think of Mr. Musk.
Yeah, they do. He was in an Iron Man movie where he's actually talking to Tony Stark. They're comparing him to like a real life Tony Stark. It's like no, he's a PayPal guy that helped devise PayPal, which, as you know, made a little bit of money. And that's all he did. Wait a minute,
did he not just buy shares into PayPal?
Well, I'm pretty sure he helped develop it. He was one of the. It wasn't that he just bought shares. He was he bought shares, of course, but he was literally there on the ground floor of PayPal, which is great. I mean, you got to remember that PayPal was a tricky deal. There were multiple companies that were trying to be the PayPal. To be that group that you would transfer money, the biggest money transfer.
You got the Cash App now, ain't you? How's that getting on the Cash App? In America, you've got in America something called the Cash App, ain't you? What's meant to be a PayPal competitor, ain't it?
Yeah, it's tough to be once you. I'm not saying that monopolies are good, but once you become like the brand name, kind of like Google. People actually use the word Google as a verb now, where they say, "Oh, just Google it instead of search it. Just Google it." Right? Do you know how much free advertising that is? eBay has anyone ever challenged eBay? No. If you want to buy cool stuff, off the what, stuff that's hard to find, you go through eBay. PayPal. I remember the rivals. Kind of like no different than when Final Form. Like go all the way back to the early tech, like VHS versus Betamax. That sort of stuff. And then like what was the one after that? It was Blu-ray versus
Laserdisc.
Well, there was Ultra DVD or Super DVD. I don't know. But there's always competition. Always, always, always. But once somebody's established, it's tough. Look at Microsoft when they owned the operating system for the longest time, and they were antitrust suits that were being filed out there. I mean, Microsoft, like, here's a perfect example. You remember Netscape?
Yes.
Like Netscape, I'm old enough to remember, like Netscape was like the browser. And then all of a sudden, but remember, they charged for it. Not a lot of money, but they charged for it. And Microsoft says, yeah, by the way, we're going to release a browser with our operating system. It's absolutely free. And that was it. It was over. Netscape was done. So anyway, sorry.
It's history. It's history, though, isn't it? And
yeah. I mean, it's how things go. And history is there's an old saying: history is written by the winners. You know that one. But the one that I liked better was by Napoleon, where he said that history is just lies that are agreed upon.
Yes.
Like, why not? Like, you get a bunch of men in a room, and they say, okay, how are we going to spin this? What just happened? It's like, okay, let's, which is, I mean, honestly, we've been doing that in the United States ever since we became a country. We've been spinning, how we got this far to where not even 5 years ago, they were trying to remove things out of our history books like, I don't know, slavery and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were literally trying to pull those out. And that's not going to happen. You can't. I know you want the United States to be the good guys, and sometimes we try, but most of the time we end up being like the Empire in Star Wars.
Well, since you've brought up those two, Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Yeah.
What is actually is there any sort of commemorance or memorial done on a yearly basis? In respect to what America did in that respect?
There might be, but you got to remember it's kind of a paradox when it comes to our media, which is over here. I know it's a little different over in the UK, but over here it revolves around some sort of violence, meaning if it bleeds, it leads. That's for ratings. If it's something like no different than a car wreck, a car wrecks on the freeway. Why does everybody slow down? Because they want to see it. It's like, holy smokes, what happened to them that I'm so glad it didn't happen to me. But so when it comes to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's not something because it's tied to our government and kind of tied to policy. We don't really try to amplify any sort of anniversary every year. Now, there's going to be anniversaries every once in a while, sure. The big ones, 10, 20, 50, or 25 and stuff like that. But for the most part, we don't. Again, we tried to remove it from the history books because it's it's one of those, like how should I compare this? I really can't. Some sort of domestic violence that you don't want to talk about if you try to do a microcosm of it. And so, we just don't really want to, kind of like, oh, heck, if you're going to go down that road, talk about the Native Americans, which we don't.
That was the next one I was going to bring up.
Oh, were you? Yeah. I mean, we've got sports teams, the Cleveland Indians, the Washington Redskins, and the Florida Seminoles and stuff like that. But you don't see a ton of documentaries on the Native Americans. It's just not. Yeah.
Indeed, and also even that term, isn't that an offensive term? A Native American.
Well, it's less offensive than, I don't know if there is any other term. I mean, they've got their tribe names, of course.
Yes.
Which we use for corporate branding. But remember we used to, for a long time, we used to have Indian head pennies. Our pennies used to have an Indian chifa. Yeah, we don't have those anymore. And I'm pretty sure that here's another one. We used to have crayons, Crayola crayons. There used to be a color in there called Indian red. All the way up until when I was going through grade school, that was there. So we've done a lot of, we try to do what we can to minimize our bad deeds, but we've got a bunch of them out there. Sorry.
America has a very colorful history. Most definitely. I mean, it's one of the youngest nations, as I always like to point out, modeled a little bit off the Magna Carta of 1215, and clearly the Bible, the Old Testament and stuff that brings forth the Constitution.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and then obviously the broken English, which is known as American English.
Oh, right, and all the different accents, which I love. There's so many different and most of them are on the East Coast. But when you get to about the middle of the country, with the exception of like Texas, they kind of all disappear, which is interesting because all the news media organizations, they all talk with a strictly Western accent. Which what I'm talking with now. I mean, there's no twang, there's no real inflections. And people say, it's like, well, that in itself is its own accent. I go, yeah, I suppose it is. But because the media uses it exclusively, it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, if you live in Alabama, if you live in Texas, if you live in New York, all the newscasters, local and national, they all use that same accent. I don't know why they picked that exactly, but that's the one they stuck to, and it's very it's universal for our country. I thought it was very interesting.
The wonders of language and linguistics.
Right.
Slightly moving on a little bit to a talking point of sorts around Joe Rogan and his antics. He seems to constantly bring up flat Earth.
He's not dumb. He's not dumb.
He definitely isn't. But the thing that is, what it seems to me, based upon the amount of time I've been listening to Joe Rogan, the JRE Experience and stuff, he covers a lot of different topics, has a major variety of guests, etc. Right. But it's clear that over the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, his position has just totally, he's done like a 180. So he was all into aliens, he was all into 9/11, he was all into pretty much everything, to be fair.
Right.
And now his stance has just totally changed. He's it gets quite uncomfortable at times sometimes when Eddie Bravo goes on his on the podcast, because they kind of incite him into this kind of conversation, and then he gets all upset and kind of ridicules him. No, you're crazy. You shouldn't be thinking all these crazy. These are conspiracy things. You're wasting your time and this and that. It almost seems like he's, I don't know, like
compromised. Yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Alex Jones did a little story on him last year where he said that Joe confided in him and that they had got to him. And it's not any sort of groundbreaking revelation there. He was, like you said, like 5 years ago, he was a big conspiracy guy, which is interesting because I think he got into it because he got into character he was in a television show 20 years ago called News Radio, where he played I think a maintenance guy or a producer or one of the camera guys. I can't remember exactly what his role was there, but who was a conspiracy guy in the show. And I think he just followed that along, and kind of like Dan Aykroyd, he's actually really into ghosts and all the occult stuff, and he knows all that stuff. The role he played in the Ghostbusters was not a stretch for him in the slightest. But But Joe Rogan, I loved him. In fact, I enjoyed listening to him because his big thing was he went against the moon landings, and said the moon landings were junk. They were awful. They were fake, totally. And he had such conviction. And in any sort of debate, if both sides are relatively equal, conviction will win out the day. Who seems more convinced themselves that their topic is right? And he destroyed people, and he was winning. And then all of a sudden, he went silent, and nobody heard from him for a little while. And then when he came out of his silence, he had a brand new television show on the Sci-Fi Network, a 1-year contract. And in the very first episode, he recanted and basically took back, and might as well have just apologized to anything bad he ever said about NASA. I was like, whoa, okay. It'd be one thing if you just had the show. That would be suspicious enough. But to retract, not informally, like your opening sequence is, oh yeah, I totally believe in NASA now. It's like, okay. So they gave him a show. They didn't have him do a guaranteed thing where he was picked up for 2 or 3 years. But then he became one of the most prolific podcasters in social media. And when he changed over to that, and that's what he does now, he does a show, I think, freaking every day, and he can get just about any guest he wants on that show. And he's brought on Neil deGrasse Tyson several times. He's gotten astronauts multiple times and physicists. And when the flat earth thing started coming out, I think he knew a good thing when he saw it. Regardless whether he believed in it or not, he knew it was good ratings, and he knew that attacking the flat earth would get him just about as good ratings as if he was actually believed in flat earth. In fact, maybe even more so, because then he could get guests on to attack it with him. And that's what he did. He brought up flat earth so many times. I literally lost count of how many different people. That would be one of his things. It's like he'd bring on a guest and say, hey, what do you think about these flat earth idiots? Or he'd bring on a guest specifically to go after the flat earthers. And that was, to this day, that's what he did. And Eddie Bravo kind of helped him in a way, because Eddie Bravo was the loose cannon side of Joe Rogan. Yeah, he's a good friend of Joe Rogan, but Eddie Bravo does his own thing. And Eddie Bravo even went so far as to interview Eric Dubay on Eddie Bravo's podcast. Brought him in on video. The connection was horrible, and they ran too long, and Eric decided he was going to go off the rails. And I predicted that almost to the minute. I said, if Eric is under 90 minutes, if they keep the interview under 90 minutes, he'll be fine, because he'll only get out the information. He won't start going off into his personal opinions about the flat earth community. But no, they ran long. He got comfortable, and it's like, then he just started attacking everybody, including, which I felt bad because, as a producer, you hate to see it, which is he attacked Alex Jones. He did an impression of Alex Jones on Eddie Bravo's show, and Eddie Bravo is a friend of Alex Jones, and there is Eric Dubay just going. I mean, it wasn't a short little dig. He was going on for 5-10 minutes to where they accidentally cut him off, and when they brought him back on, they didn't bring him on with video, and so.
I missed that part, to be fair.
Oh yeah, you ought to watch it. I mean, he was doing a really bad impression of Alex Jones. The whole rah 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 rah. The whole when Alex gets into character and he starts getting all. Oh, that was another thing, by the way. If anyone is a huge fan of Alex Jones, he went to court last year, and child custody, no shock there, and he confessed to the judge that everything that he did in his show was an act. It was a character. It was a role. And so anyone that thinks, again, I'm not going to pick on like World Wrestling Federation stuff and all that. And anyone knows that it's good theater, the World Wrestling stuff. Alex Jones is a different kind of theater, but the fact that he's admitting to it didn't help him much. That's for sure. Anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, it's. I mean, also, as you say, you brought up Eddie Bravo, who brought Eric Dubay on.
Yeah.
What do you think has happened to that guy?
Eric or Eddie?
Yeah, Eric. Because I'll get on to Eddie in a minute, because I think there's Eddie's a bit.
I can tell you what happened to Eric. Eric wouldn't listen to anybody. Eric has created a bunch of good content, no question.
Yeah.
His 200 proofs is really good, and he was making a lot of videos, and he did some good interviews, and everything was going fine. Where he ran into a problem, and it's been there since the beginning, was his extracurricular stuff. And I don't mind saying this because I'll be as gentle as I can. He's anti-Semitic, plain and simple. He does not like Jewish people. And he goes, so when he makes 30 flat earth videos, and then he makes one that says how much I don't like Jewish people, and I won't go into the details. It's you can't really mix the two. It's really, really tough. To where I was talking to.
Is he presenting? Because I think I know what you're alluding to. I haven't actually watched those videos. But is the information that he's presenting, is it credible and logical, or is it just totally farcical?
Oh, you mean the Jewish stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, well, most of it's reprints. It's not like he's coming up with his own original thoughts, but when you make a 4-hour video called Adolf Hitler versus the Jew World Order, and you use Adolf Hitler as your thumbnail, you're gonna raise a few flags to where eventually, and I've warned him so many times. Even though he and I have never spoken directly, I went through channels and I said, look, don't keep doing this. Eventually, what's going to happen is Flat Earth is going to get high profile enough that someone's going to look at you and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, hate speech," and they're going to come after you. And that's exactly what happened. Eventually, somebody looked at his channel, and especially this year, over the last 12 months, there's a certain hypersensitivity that's out there, for race and gender and sexuality, and his channel was destroyed. It was taken down. He had 120,000 subs, and it was wiped out overnight, and it could not be appealed. And because it's hate speech, it's different from getting a copyright strike or something like that. And he's been trying to build it up since then, and he's only up to 30,000 subs. And also, for whatever reason, the other thing, he's not leaving Thailand. He has had multiple chances. Look, he was invited to every conference, despite his views. He was just invited to everything because he had been there, in the community. And I have it through a fairly credible source that he's not going anywhere. I don't know if it's a fear of a no-fly list. I don't know if whatever, but he kind of tipped his hand, whatever. He gave it away when I'm sure I said that wrong. He gave it away when he was on Eddie Bravo's show, because Eddie Bravo asked him to come down to somewhere in the Pacific Rim, like one of the Indonesian islands, because Eddie Bravo was going to do a martial arts thing out there, right? It was not going to be that far away from Eric. And Eddie said, "Oh, yeah, I'll get you some backstage passes. It'll be really great. We'll have a lot of fun," right? Because again, Eric's also into martial arts. And Eric didn't even hesitate. He was like, there was a certain fear in his eyes. He's like, no, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it. It's like, wow, seriously? You're going to blow him off on air? You're not even going to say, "Oh yeah, that sounds like fun," and then write him later politely, say, "Sorry, I can't come." You're actually going to say there 10 seconds in and say you're not going to go. I don't know why exactly he's in Thailand, but he's not going anywhere. So that's Eric. I don't worry about it at this point, because the community's gotten so large that everybody's, look, we've got conferences booked and we don't need him to be a part of it. And he has been more than happy to accommodate that view on our side. He's distanced us to where I'll end it on this, where when he was on the interview with Eddie Bravo, and he says that everybody in the conference is a shill. He literally called it Shill Fest 2017, and that the only true flat earther is him. And it's like, okay, don't sound like a religious cult leader or anything, but you're going down that road. So,
well, just for my purposes, and maybe for some of the listeners, could you confirm what is a shill? Because I hear these terms loads of times, and I'm unsure of exactly what the meaning of it is.
It's a good point, because there are people that latch on to that term without actually fully knowing what it's about. It is the term initially comes from the word shillabur, which is a carnival guy's assistant. So you're thinking, okay, what does that mean? So if you're ever, I don't know what you guys do for fairs and carnivals over there, but like, do you have things like the ring toss? You throw 3 baseballs at some milk bottles and crap like that. Okay. So let's say you're doing the ring toss and it's like three throws for $1, win a teddy bear for your girlfriend, blah blah blah. Right? That's the carnival guy. The guy on the outside, what you do is you make it seem, this is an old trick. This goes back thousands of years. It's an old trick. You have a guy saying, "Oh yeah," and he's holding a teddy bear already. I did it on my first $1. It was easy. And so he's working for the ring toss guy, but his appearance is that he's not. He's just one of you, and that he, and you're like, oh, okay, I think I'll give it a try too. $20 later, you still don't have a teddy bear, and then you turn around and that guy's gone. The guy that had the teddy bear, he's gone. It's an old street trick that if you've ever played like 3-card Monte. Always there's 3-card Monte. It's like, oh yeah, guy behind you says, oh yeah, I totally won $20, totally got the card right away, even though it's a complete scam. That's what a shill. So shill is short for shillabur, which is somebody that appears to be working for you, working with you. He's on your side, but actually he's working on the other side. So he is the other version of it would be, it's a short version of saying controlled opposition. And I can't remember who did the initial quote, and that is the easiest way to infiltrate an opposition to something like that is to control it. Meaning you put your people in there, and then eventually you have those people actually directing it. You don't have just general members. You make sure that officers of whatever group you're talking about are controlled. That's one of those things. And so when any group pops up, there's always people that say, especially if you disagree with people, that say, oh, well, if you disagree with me, you must be working for the other side. I was like, to this day, I still don't think that I could say that there's any shills in Flat Earth at all, because I've met them all. And I've hung out with them. And, well, I shouldn't say I've met them all, but I've met a lot of them between the conferences and the meetups and doing the live hangouts and stuff like that. And everybody appears to be pretty much as advertised. I mean, nobody's squeaky clean, mind you. Everyone, every once in a while you run into somebody who has a checkered past, but as far as government agents, come on, don't need. Anyway, go ahead.
To try to get into the psychology of that, then. So you've just defined what the shill is, then. So
right.
What I'm trying to find out. Well, in a stand, what would this government agent get out of infiltrating? Is it to cause disharmony, or is it to gather information? Like, what would this shell be doing?
If you're going to infiltrate like a terrorist group, that's one thing, because eventually you're going to shut them down. Or if you're going to, like law enforcement, they do it all the time. You send guys under deep cover into cartels and drug operations, because eventually you're going to shut them down. Eventually, that would be the goal of any ticket group. You don't make it bigger. You disrupt as much as you can, and then you shut it down. Flat Earth has been going gangbusters, and it just keeps getting bigger almost exponentially every year. And so if there are shills, they're doing terrible jobs. I mean, you would never want to talk to the media. You'd want it to make it seem like a joke. You'd want it to make it seem like there was no credibility to it at all. And that's what a government agent would do. They would shut it. They would eventually, sooner or later, you would have to shut it down. But with something like this, you would never let it get off the ground in the first place. You'd bury it immediately. You'd get in there, and then you'd make a whole bunch of videos to discredit it, really awful videos. You'd get the media to help you, and that's not what happened. We see the exact opposite. The Google searches. If you wanted to shut it down, the Google searches alone could stunt it to where it would never go anywhere. The YouTube searches, which is also owned by Google. It's easy. I mean, that's coding 101. That is very, very easy. You just say, if you see flat or earth or any combination of these words, you never recommend those videos to anyone. And there's the opposite. We have people complaining because flat earth videos are recommended to everyone because people keep watching them. It's infectious.
Well, Okay, let's play righteous advocate.
Mhm.
So maybe, and this is kind of falling on more of a skeptical side. Maybe this has been put out um, to take people's attention away from other serious
Conspiracy.
quote
Yeah.
unquote conspiracies. Yeah, so
Sure.
the
Sure.
9/11 Truth Movement, for instance,
Uh,
Waco, Texas. We can go on and on and on.
and
The
and that's
military.
and there are people that feel that way. In fact, I know some dedicated trolls that feel, and I understand that, and which is that the rabbit holes only go so deep and no deeper. Meaning 9/11 is the ultimate of all conspiracies, and there's nothing bigger than that. And I take pride in the fact that 9/11 is the biggest conspiracy ever. And then all of a sudden you show them flat Earth. What do you think they're going to do? It's all of a sudden, it's like all this energy they spent in 9/11 has now been diminished, has now been overshadowed by this monster, this Goliath that's flat Earth. However, I go the other way and I say, because I've seen it too many times with conspiracy people, if you people that believe in all sorts of conspiracies, but they will not believe in flat Earth, and I say, look, if you can get your head to absorb even a fraction of flat Earth, you're going to believe everything else. Meaning, if you didn't believe in Sandy Hook, or if you didn't believe in 9/11 or Pearl Harbor or every American war or anything like that, you will now, because flat Earth opens up your mind to everything. It's literally the ultimate open-minded test, to where nowadays not only do I not do anything malicious to anybody, but I can't even judge somebody. So if somebody literally came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, by the way, I know a guy that swears that Elvis had Bigfoot's baby," normally I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, you can go away now." Now I can't judge this guy. I go, "Okay, I'll give you a few minutes. What do you got?" Why not? How can I? It'd be hypocritical. I open my day with flat Earth, flat Earth on toast. So what's crazier than that? And so anyone that says that it's distracting from the others, I in the short term, yes, of course, because flat Earth is all consuming. People go down that road and they don't sleep for 2 weeks and they just watch tons of flat Earth videos. There was a guy that worked for YouTube that came out recently that said, he goes, the average flat earther person that gets into flat Earth watches like 20 flat Earth videos in a row. What do you think we're going to recommend to people? Right? Because people are complaining. It's like, why is flat Earth just keep getting recommended? But once you get through it and once you get past the enthusiasm, then it's like the whole shelf of conspiracies that was gathering dust. Now you gotta go back and look at them again in a different light. And so far, I think that's true. Everyone, it's like nobody, I've never seen anyone that goes into flat Earth that all of a sudden that says that 9/11, isn't a valid, argument anymore. What they'll do is they'll kind of like me, although I'm a little different because I'm really, really hardcore, which is I say I don't really care as much about 9/11 because how could I? Flat Earth is bigger. It's a hierarchy of things. It's kind of like, why would I watch high school baseball when I can watch the major leagues? Type of thing. But it's not to say that it's not there, and I will talk about it. If somebody asks me questions about it, oh yeah, you bet I'll chime in. But it is not going to be on my daily checklist of things to look at, because right now flat Earth is my church.
Cool.
Mark, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, when I end sometimes, I'm sorry. You guys don't know because I'm rolling and rolling, but in my mind it's like, okay, I'm going to end on this word. But sorry.
So Mark, at the minute, there's like this. It's being spoken about across the internet about this censorship and YouTube. Is it true that YouTube are targeting you guys as well, the flat Earth community?
No, we dodged what you're talking about initially was, and I don't even know if it was censorship as much. It was over here was called the adpocalypse, known as cross between advertising and the apocalypse. That was because as you know, there's a lot of rabbit holes in YouTube. And YouTube, being that they were owned by Google, thought they could flex their muscle. It's like, you know what? We're going to put our corporate advertisers, because no different than television. So like if Chevy Trucks wants to advertise on videos, you make sure their videos are, their trucks are advertised on videos. But YouTube wasn't caring. It's like, you know what? We're just going to put them on anything. So it doesn't matter what the video was. They would put these advertisements, and the advertisers started to complain. It's like, no, we only want appropriate videos. And it's like, well, it's a lot of work. We don't want to do it. Plus, you know what? We're Google. We're bigger than you, so who cares? And eventually what happened was the corporations started pulling away the advertising dollars. And so Google's only response was, okay, maybe we can help clean up, kind of like cleaning out the bad parts of town. Yeah. Let's clean up some of the stuff that's out there. And so they targeted some conspiracies. They really focused on the shootings. So if anyone was critical of any of the shootings that are over here, they really cracked down on those a lot more than they used to. And but the fallout on our side, on the flat Earth side, because remember, it's flat Earth. It's still fairly positive compared to other conspiracies that are out there. We lost about, I think, 10% of the videos that were out there, which isn't, it seems like a lot, but it really wasn't that much because we've got a lot of content out there. And so once that calmed down, it kind of helped us in the end because there were a lot more people looking at it. And we were kind of becoming this little, remember I said the guy that worked for YouTube, we were kind of like this little cash cow for YouTube. So why would you go after, I mean, yeah, other conspiracies, not as much, but if there's one conspiracy out there that's making, that's getting a lot of clicks and a lot of views, remember, YouTube is no different than any other television outlet. And their ultimate goal is to have you watching them all the time. They want you to watch whatever it is. And if you're stuck on a channel, they don't care. As long as you're watching that, it's on their network, they don't care. So if you watch 40 YouTube videos in a row, that actually helps our cause, which means because they're not going to destroy flat Earth. Again, it comes down to money. And so, yeah, we survived that pretty well.
Okay, thanks for answering that one. Noble, you still there?
Where'd he go? Here indeed. So I've been taking quite a few transatlantic flights over the last few weeks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And as usual, I always have a look at the window. I would normally videotape the departures and arrivals.
Sure.
And I was thinking to myself, flat Earth, obviously I've looked out the window, I've done the video, seen the horizon, totally flat, obviously going up to more than, say, 37,000 feet. As everyone has highlighted and seen, we're staying flat. We rise up, we go in one direction, and for the remainder of those 8 hours, 12 hours, wherever you're going, long haul wise, you're going to be on a straight trajectory. Maybe occasionally banking from maybe left to right, but not very often.
Right.
The main banking you will do is on the approach to the airport, and then you will start to descend.
Right. Traveling
at 500 plus miles an hour, sometimes even 700, according to the little display that I've got on the seats.
Yeah. If you get a tailwind, yeah, you can. That's true.
This is it. Yeah. So I'm thinking of speed, and then I'm thinking of flat Earth, and I'm thinking, okay. They're saying that we're on a spinning globe that's going 24,000 miles an hour, whatever the number is. At the same time, we're twisting as well through the cosmos and all this. So there's basically three forms of movement that's taking place on this Earth. So,
right. And
we've all been saying, look, we can't feel this. If we're traveling at so fast, why is the water not staying on, etc.? Why can we feel these movements? So I go back to my various plane experiences, and I feel the takeoff. You feel that thrust when you're going on that runway. But after you get to after you've ascended and the throttle sort of taken off a bit, and maybe after 10 to 15 minutes, your body totally acclimatizes to the fact that you're now traveling at 500 plus miles an hour at 30,000 feet in the air, and you don't feel that movement. The only time you feel the movement is when you look out and you can actually see the clouds drifting by, kind of not zooming by, but you can see them sort of going by. If you're low enough and it's a clearer day, you can actually see you going over, the flat terrain of the plane.
Right.
But again, I'm not feeling that.
Right. You want me to respond to that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. No, it's fine. No, I've heard this argument before. There are some that I like better than others, but where I think it initially started was it kind of just to give people a perspective. And you're absolutely right. If the uh, if the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, around the equator, and it's going around the sun at 60,000 miles an hour, and the entire solar system is flying sideways like a plate at 500,000 miles an hour through the galaxy, why aren't we feeling anything? And yeah, you're absolutely right. You will get acclimatized to certain things. However, that being said, there are certain things that also are missing, meaning, okay, fine, you don't feel it from a G-force standpoint. And if other people want to argue it, that's fine. What I try to focus on are the stars, meaning the Earth is moving in a certain direction. It's moving around the sun in a different direction. And the solar system is also moving sideways at a different direction, even speeds. And yet we never, and this is where I think it kind of gets muddled, we never sense any movement. Meaning when you look at the star trails, they don't change. They should be corkscrewing around in a whole bunch of different directions. And some people say, like science will come back and say, well, no, they're so far away, you're not going to sense any changes in the star trails. And I'll go on, well, no, if you consider parallax, you should, because the nearest star is what, 4 light years away? If you want to round it up to 10, that's fine. But they also say there are stars that are thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of light years away. And yet, kind of like a telephone pole that's next to you and a mountain that's off in the distance, you should see stars moving out of alignment with each other. We should see the parallax, and we don't see that ever. And they're saying, again, they'll come back and say, well, it's the distance. You'll never see it. I'm going, okay. Don't forget the zodiac is still the zodiac, and though that zodiac, the star formations haven't changed in a couple thousand years. So if you want to say the stars don't change over the course of an hour or a day or a week or a month or a year, that's fine. I may even give you that because of distance. But 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, there's got to be some parallax there. Got to be, and we don't see it. The other thing I'll throw at you is, with it, when you're on the plane, I'll throw it back at you. When you're on that plane, you're right. You don't sense any movement at all. And that's actually one of our big points, which is the planes are flying perfectly level. Now, human beings may not be able to detect how, distances and relative motion, but we can sense motion very, very well. So even if the plane noses down 500 feet, you're going to feel it. When you're on that plane, it's flying perfectly level. It's perfectly level. You don't sense anything. And yet, when it's flying over the curvature of the Earth, especially at 500 miles an hour, it should be either dipping down or dipping up to account for the curvature. Because remember, every 50 miles, you're talking 1,700 feet worth of curvature. And that's just 50 miles, and you might be traveling 1,000 miles. That's a lot of dipping you might have to do, and yet we never sense it. And you're saying, oh, it's done with microprocessor technology, and we just don't sense it. And it's like, oh, yeah, fine. If you want to say that nowadays in 2018 we don't sense it, that's fine. What did they do in 1950 when commercial airliners were out? What about 1960? When did the technology get into place where it was auto adjusting? If you say, well, it's done off of altitude meters, it's not that precise. You're going to sense it. We don't see it. We bring apps on phones, with us, and we never sense any sort. In fact, there's a great video. In fact, maybe I'll send it to you after we're done, where a guy sent me a thing from Flight Tracker, and it was a weird look where it was showing the vertical stuff, not just how the planes are flying over the country, but the vertical stuff. And that they were showing was the plane goes perfectly straight up, almost levels off, goes perfectly straight for whatever, 500, 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, and then goes vertically down. And I think when you watch the video, you're going, wow, that's really interesting, but it's just a computer graphic. I'm going, no, they got the data from somewhere. And what's more interesting was because they were showing it over the United States, is that the United States, has quite a bit of curvature in 2,000 miles or whatever it is from California to New York. And yet when you looked at that graphic, the United States was laid out perfectly flat. I'm going, why'd they flatten out the map? Because the raw data would have been curved. So why is showing us a flat map, and why are the planes flying perfectly flat over this flat map? Why not just show us the curved map? It would have been easier. Sorry, I go off on these tangents, but
I know, Paul, that's the best way, Mark, to give these detailed answers, because that's how the audience love it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Anyway, what else you got?
We got you back now, Noble. I know Noble had one more question before he wrapped up.
Okay.
Yeah, I am back. I am back. Yeah, the only other question I have is when are we going to have the American, contingent arrive in the UK for one of these conferences?
I hopefully soon. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened with the UK conference last time, but it was decided that the UK conference should be just Europeans, which is
Wow.
fine. And again, we didn't have, to be fair, when we did the American conference over here, we only had one from out of country, and that was Irusan Ducci from South America. And I think he actually attended yours as well over there. But we'll be mixing it up, I'm sure, soon enough. Remember, in fact, we just sent over one of our guys to a conference in South Korea. Just, I think it was the beginning of this year.
South Korea.
Yeah, South Korea. The Indonesian market and the Pacific Rim chapters are really, really big. I mean, we're everywhere. In fact, I did a Skype thing. In fact, it was just last month, I believe, down in New Zealand, where they Skyped me in, and I think they Skyped in Dave Murphy as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I listened to that one. Yeah, that was a good
Yeah,
interview.
that was a lot of fun, and it's like, wow. I mean, yeah, it was at a bar. It wasn't exactly the most formal thing in the world, but it's New Zealand. What did you expect? It's, it was really fun. So yeah, there are, as the movie guy said, we have people everywhere, a lot of people. And I don't want to delve into too much of the details, but we talked about on air. But when I was down in Los Angeles, I met celebrities, notable celebrities that were into this, and they're still in the closet. And spoke with my cousin, who said that she spoke with financial guys, big, high-ranking financial guys that are also into it. And I'm not going to details of who they are, but
Indeed.
Most of the community is still in the closet because it's still not fashionable to come out. I mean, it's getting there. We're on that fringe. Let me end with this, where I got called down to National Geographic, the big periodical. They flew me down to Los Angeles to witness a test from a skeptics group that was trying to show us that indeed there is curvature, and they screwed it up horribly. But I don't get into that too much. But the fact that National Geographic was talking about this, and towards the end of the interview, saying along the lines of how they were concerned that this was what happens to science when this thing gets too big. They were almost speaking about like it's an inevitability. And I realized after I'd met the amount of people that I'd met that it is inevitable, because there is no grapevine that is immune to flat Earth. Meaning, it doesn't matter how rich, how powerful, how talented, how beautiful you are. Flat Earth is bigger than you. It's bigger than the president of your country. In fact, it's bigger than your country entirely. So, and as you know, when people talk, they say, after you get, comparing, it's like, oh, how's the weather, blah, 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 and sports teams, usually somebody will throw out a story. It's like, oh, hey, well, what's up? What's happening? What's going on? What's new? What sort of interesting story? And Flat Earth is the most interesting story I've ever heard of. And so eventually, you kind of go back and forth until somebody brings it up. And that's why we're seeing it in circles that are even surprising me a bit. So yeah, Flat Earth, it's going to be, where it's going, I am not sure. But wherever it's going, it's going to be big.
Great stuff, great stuff. Well, Mark Sargent, thanks for coming on once again. As always, you give us the great detailed breakdowns, and that's what we love. So
happy to be here.
Until next time, we'll stay locked into the Flat Earth clues, and until next time.
Oh yeah, and by the way, I did Clue 13, and which is called The Lost Nail, and that just came out a couple weeks ago. And Clue 14 is coming out next week. It's going to be called The Coat of Credibility. Okay, we'll stay tuned for that one. So no problem, Mark Sargent. Thanks as always.